What's up? What's up? What's going on, guys? A few minutes before we get started here, as David has raised his hands many times, rumor has it David showed up 30 minutes before simply so he's not late to the webinar. And if that's what you need to do to be on time, like that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you have to show up 30 minutes late or 30 minutes early to not be 2 minutes late, like game on. So hats off to you, David. Amazing job being here since 1:30.
Cheat code, buddy.
If that's what it takes, so be it. All right. We still got a few minutes before we roll, guys. So sit down, grab whatever your drink of choice is, whether it's sparkling water or sweet tea from Culver's. You guys take your choice. And yeah, give a few minutes for some more people to roll in, and then we'll get rolling.
Did you get the curd burger?
Don't worry about my meal, okay? I ate lunch.
I just want to know if you're going to fall asleep during this or not.
Oh
That's all.
goodness. Goodness, no.
Look at that. You're so carved out, your camera is shut off.
I just turned it off to be nice. I mean, do you guys really want to look at me this whole time while I just sit here and stare back at you while we wait for everybody that shows up at 2:02 Central Time, David? Before we start?
Uh,
Choice. I guess you can always like turn your monitor off or something like that if you don't want to look at me. So just we can pin David. That's what we can do. We can pin you up there.
Uh-oh. Nobody wants that.
Everybody just logged off. I don't understand why. No, I'm kidding.
Ah,
I gotcha. Cool. Short week, guys. I think everybody, let me see through who we got. I think everybody's US, continental US. So I
we're not
can
worldwide.
say happy Thanksgiving because if it was Canada or also do have a couple individuals I know that's right over the line to Mexico. I can't say it. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Early Thanksgiving. Um, so chat as we get wait for a couple more people to roll in. And this is sales, so I'm allowed to say this. Who's working on Friday? Throw it in the chat. Yes or no. Now, this also let's just I think we need some terms and conditions to this. One, if your wife or significant other thinks you're off, but you're still going to answer emails and phone calls in the other room, okay, that still counts as working. If you set your phone down and don't pick it up the entire day, that would be justified as a day off. So you should have chat, throw it inside chat. I think that's a fun question to start with. Yes or no, or whatever you want to say. Are you working on Friday? So how many reps do we have that are actually working on Friday? And you're sending it only to the host, so only I know the secret. You can say no, and your boss won't know. As long as you got those auto replies on, gotta have the auto replies. I'm not giving you guys the hacks to that yet. We're way too early. All right, I'm working. They're solid. All right, we got one. Who else? I will tell you from my side, I will be working. My wife does think I'm off. And there's probably several times where she's going to yell at me to put my phone down or stop voice dictating my messages. So I'm not going to get away with it for that long. But the idea right now is, yeah, I'm off Friday. We go pick trees. We get a Christmas tree. I am one of those families. I am one of those people. It's like you can't put it up before Thanksgiving. It's not allowed.
oh, dude. We already got our stuff up, dude. Christmas is playing.
My sister-in-law literally has a tree in her window. I was like, what are you doing?
That's
Not
right.
yet. Not yet.
Yeah.
All right. All right. 2:02. We're rolling. If you're late, sucks to be you. All right, guys. So welcome to No Reps Left Behind. This week is a cool one. And I say that because I love talking about this week and this one specifically, which is ultimately how to spend your time as wisely as possible. There's a lot of things that I went through within my career as a sales rep, my career as a manager, and my career as a leader that required me to evolve the skills, tactics, tools, all that kind of different stuff into getting more done within my workday. And that's probably one of the hardest things that we have to do is make sure that when we're somewhere, we're present within that matter, right? We're not walking into a meeting and thinking about something different, or we're not working hours on end at night simply to be able to get the rudimentary tasks that make no difference inside your sales process, right? Get those things done. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and jumping through that stuff. As I always say on each one of those, because I know we got a few new people that are jumping in. Use the chat, guys. I know this is webinar style, but use the chat. David is much better interacting inside the chat than I am, but he'll talk back to you. And then every now and then, if I see it, we'll chime in, bring it in. If you got questions, concerns, you like it, you don't like it, you disagree, like that's what we're here for. We all show up. There's no cost to be here. We're showing up to be better. So let's use that time as wisely as possible. So this is what we'll get started with and get rolling. So if I can get the screen to change, not twice, but once. There we go. All right, we're in. My name's Chad Westbrook. I am the founder of Sales Alignment. Chances are, if you guys have seen any of the videos, marketing material, or you're simply just a part of the make sales, make leads, make service work programs, that's why you're here. My career has been in the construction industry my entire life, and I'll probably say the last 18 years or so has been specifically commercial roofing, with even an accent, I'll say, on service. So when we talk about some of the largest preventative maintenance initiatives across the United States, I've been in those situations, and I have learned a lot, whether it's through mentoring or being mentored, right? Mentoring others and helping other sales teams and individuals excel, or simply just learning from you guys. I mean, that's a huge, huge part of what I do. And that's why I'm here. So well above, I'll say, the 500 million inside sales for commercial roofing, continuing to be able to push specifically into that $1 billion worth of sales. And the coolest thing I have to stand on, guys, is this is not like $1, $2, $3 million jobs. This is like $1, $2, $3,000 jobs. So it's a mass amount of service that goes in this. Service is the incubator to all of the re-roofs, especially the private negotiated re-roofs that you guys are going to get. And that's the whole reason we do this. Raise the floor of our teams. That way we're not battling the lowest level salesmen, but our entire teams are getting better, which makes us as a team a better company, right? Better experiences. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it becomes easier to sell when you got a great name standing behind you, which could absolutely be your guys' company if that's who you want it to be. So that's who I am.
Hey guys, David Bonney, founder of 45. I come from the venture capital private equity world where these behemoths invest 10, 20, 50 or more $1 million into your business and expect a big payout, which requires aggressive growth. I got into the commercial roofing space about 6 years ago, started doing deep work there, and Chad and I have been on this journey for probably 3-4 years now. So yeah, this is all about how do we bring the most innovative tools and resources that are out there in the industry that absolutely apply to commercial roofing. How do we bring those to you guys to help exponentiate your ability to succeed? That's why we're here. That's what we're doing. So like Chad said, get in the chat. If you guys have deals that you're working this week that you need help with, we're here to pour into you guys. We're here to help.
There we go. And I can see everybody who's on a different screen right now. So if you're in a different browser, no, I'm kidding. But for real, we're here. There's visuals behind this stuff, guys. So if you're listening, if you're driving, all that stuff's cool. I'm not going to make you break the distracted driving policy, but we are going to be sharing stuff that connect directly back into it. And much like David said, use the chat, guys. Let's jump through this stuff. I normally say this at the end. We're switching it up. I'm going to say at the beginning, there's no cost for you guys to be here. So the only thing that I ask, whether you're a part of one of our programs or not, is that you help me spread the word. Chances are that you know somebody that is in sales. And if you are like 99.9% of the other sales reps, everything is beautiful, everything is awesome in your world until reality kicks in. We all need help. We all want to get better at what we're doing. That's what I'm asking you guys to do, is to be able to share this with fellow individuals who are in sales, could see value inside what we're delivering, because that's the win for me, is that I continue to be able to raise the floor well beyond just the individuals that are here. And you guys help me spread that word. So since there's nothing that you guys are paying other than your time and energy, which is going to have 10x return, right? Once we put all this stuff into motion in the field, I'm asking you guys to be able to share it. These are LinkedIn QR codes. So if you take your phone, hold it up to it. This is a QR code, and you'll be able to see it. You can share the stuff. So there's a bunch of stuff on my LinkedIn page, all that kind of different stuff. Same with David's. Share it, tag us in it. We want to be a part of the conversation. We want to be able to be involved in the sales reps that we work with. That's my request to you guys. The second thing that I'll share with you is the Facebook group. So if there's one thing that always frustrated me is that every roofing Facebook group that I got into always kind of turned into a bunch of subcontractors looking for work or some type of, it's been hijacked. I got a Facebook group, guys. I think it's 100 deep right now. I'm continuing to be able to grow it. And the idea behind it is that I'm streaming this to it and we're putting in different things that we find. The groups are only as good as the people that make up the groups. And if you guys want to contribute to the group as much as you take away from it, I'm going to encourage you guys to scan this with your phone. If you just hold your camera right up to it, it'll take you straight to the Facebook group. You can apply to join. And that's a huge part to it. You can apply to join. So I do decline people all day long that don't have roofing or sales background because I don't want it basically gummed up with all of that stuff. So join if you're a part of it. That would be absolutely fabulous. And again, the group is only as good as you guys make it. So ask your questions, ask your comments, make it interactive. And it can be a fun part to be a part of. But again, I made this for you guys. And all you got to do is scan the QR code. If you don't have it, again, you can find it on my page, all that kind of different stuff. All right. So we're getting into it. What we're going to be going through is ultimately what we call the 4D process. And if you guys have been a part of the last, I think it's six or seven different trainings that we've done within this series, we've talked about the 4D process: discovery, diagnosis, demonstration, and decision. Okay. So those are big parts of the sales process. So discovery, right? So I want to make sure that we're jumping through this correctly. So when we go through discovery, what we're doing is we're going in there with an open mind. We don't know what the problem is. And I promise you, your customer does not want to hear about you or your business. You're walking in because they typically have a problem or a goal. And we need to be open-minded enough to be able to hear what his perception of reality is. It's a huge part of what we're going to be talking about today is the head game, right? Because their perception is their reality. They don't know what the roof looks like, right? All they know is they got water on the floor, they got damaged product or whatever is going on. So it's a discovery phase. Second phase is diagnosis. So diagnosis is when we actually get up on the roof or we're looking at what the potential problem is and we're diagnosing it. Just like a doctor is going to come in, they're going to ask you questions about what's going on, right? Have you tried any medicine? How long have you been doing that? Have you noticed anything different? Those are the same discovery questions that we're going into. When we step into diagnosis, we're actually up on the roof or we're looking at the actual I'll say what's contributing to the issue that they have in the building. Finally, and I won't say finally, this is 3, right, is demonstration. Demonstration is how we position ourselves as an expert. That's what we have to do, because if we're going with a broken leg to a general practitioner, right, we're going to assume that they're not the ones that's going to be doing surgery on our knee. They're going to refer us to a specialist who has a specialty and an expertise inside fixing the exact issue what we have. And 99% of the time, that's what makes us feel warm and fuzzy inside. Is that I know this doctor is going to do it. He's the best in the area, county, country, whatever it is, right? It gives you that confidence because he's done the surgery 20 times this week and 20 out of 20 has been successful. Now, I'm going to rewind that real quick and I'm going to put it inside roofing terms. When we show up, the customer has a perception of the problem. And I promise you, it's not the deficiency on the roof. It's whatever is happening in the building. Could be as simple as a stained ceiling tile. It could be water on a desk. It could be water on the floor. It could be damaged product. You don't know, only they know. That's discovery in the simplest way. We're going to talk through that, how those go, the questions that we have in the check boxes. Diagnosis. Why is it happening? That's when you go on the roof or you go and look at what's going on inside and you start figuring out the exact deficiencies that's causing the problem. Finally, demonstration. The problem that they have is punctures inside the roof system. How are you going to position yourself as an expert inside solving the problem that they see? Okay. Demonstration is not about how do you fix the roof, right? How do you patch that puncture? He doesn't care about that. What he cares about is water in the building and how is he never going to have to deal with that situation again. These 3 Ds funnel into the last D, which is we want the client to make a decision. That's what this whole thing is about, because all of this means nothing if the client doesn't make the decision to act, right? That's the first milestone and the first checkbox that we got is that they have to make a decision that the problem is big enough to act. And that's what's going to feed us into ultimately what we call the perfect buyer's journey. And there's 3 checkpoints that every single customer needs to go through. So checkpoint number 1, do they need to act, right? It's not a maybe, it's a yes or no. A stained ceiling tile in Chick-fil-A is completely different than a stained ceiling tile in a strip mall of a Chinese restaurant, right? 2 completely different worlds. A roof leak inside a hospital and a roof leak in a lumber yard are 2 completely different things. They're both a roof leak. They can both be the same deficiency. How they affect the business is completely different. And that is the first step, is that we have to figure out, is the problem big enough for them to act? After that, we got to figure out, why are they reaching out to us? Do they actually need new or outside help? If you tried to fix it himself the last 5, 6 times, what's the difference this time? And it's okay to ask that question. Or if he's been using a vendor and all of a sudden you guys show up with a second bid, why? Why don't you just use the vendor you have? And what you guys will find out is going to change your world, that there is a problem that they have with their current way that they're doing something, typically, right? That they need outside services. He's tried to fix it 5 or 6 times and it didn't work, and he's finally committed to getting it fixed right. Or the vendor they had, he's tried to fix it 3 or 4 times, raked him over the coals for $10,000, and he's not spending any more money with that contractor. That is ultimately checkpoint 2. Do they need new or outside help? And then checkpoint 3 puts us inside that demonstration side, is, do we have the best solution? If you come out as a roofing contractor, does repairs, preventative maintenance, contract repairs, liquid membranes, replacements, and new construction, you are no better than that general practitioner that you went to with a broken leg. What you need to position yourself for, and each time, is an expert within that. And that allows you to be able to say, I'm an expert at solving leaks. I solve leaks like this every single day, and this is how we do it. And all 3 of these is what we've went through so far within this, like I said, 6 or 7 series so far. So if you haven't seen all of them and you're just coming in, this is a good pretense to it. If you guys have went through it, I hope this is close to what you guys are taking away, and why it is so important to be able to have those checkpoints or those milestones that every customer must bypass, right? Or must not bypass, but must pass. That's a better one. Check the point, right? Hit the milestone. David, anything you want to add into this, sir?
Nope. I think that's perfect.
I just did fabulous. Like, it was perfect. I just want to hear it out of your mouth. I just want to hear it out of your mouth.
Perfect.
All right, good. We're going to cut that. We're going to save that little clip so I can use that later on. All right. So here's what I'm telling you guys. It's okay to disqualify stuff. Each one of these, we should be in discovery mode, because as we're going through each one of these checkpoints, we need to be open-minded, because it doesn't matter how good of a roofer you are or how well that you fix punctures on roof until you understand what's actually going on in their world. The client makes the decision to award the job based upon their perception of the issue. They make the decision to award the job to another contractor based upon their perception of the solution. There's no difference in that. So what I'm telling you guys is, more leads is not always good. What you need is better leads. And we'll talk a little bit about this, right, inside the 3 steps to be able to get this together. But we need to discover and disqualify. It's okay to disqualify individuals early inside the sales process if the problem's not big enough to act. That's okay. Because what happens when we disqualify it is we gain time, something we can never, ever, ever get more of. The more that you push into your book of business, the more crappy opportunities that potentially can never sell, but you're like, you know what, I'm going to quote it because I need to hit quota this week, right? I need to be able to, I can't zero this week. I'm going to quote it so I can do it. The more stuff that you push into your book of business like that is the less time that you have to focus on the true opportunities that really need to sell. And if you have ever been updating your opportunities in the middle of the night or late at night simply to be able to get them correct, that's a problem, guys. That's a problem. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. How do you discover and disqualify, get the garbage out of your sales funnel so you can truly focus your time, energy, and effort in what truly is going to close, or what clients truly need your help, right? So they check the 3 boxes. Do they need to act? Do they need outside help? And do you guys have the best solution? All right. So I told you this is one of my favorite ones, and this is why, because it takes us a little bit off of those 3 checkpoints and goes really into the personal side. And I have spent a massive amount of time, resources, and went through a boatload of books to be able to get where I am right now. And I'm not even 1/10 of where I want to be. But what I'm going to share with you guys today is the secrets that I have developed, right, to be able to have the most successful meetings, discovery, questions, all that kind of different stuff. Number one is headspace. And this is one of the biggest things that I see within sales reps, especially sales reps that are stressed out or have too much to do, or their schedule's not accurate or doesn't allow for them to be able to get done what they do, is they get in their own head. Because when you go into a meeting, you should not be thinking about your next meeting. You should not be thinking about your phone buzzing and the emails that are going off or the phone calls that are coming into your phone. You need a way to be able to block that stuff out. Okay. And only you guys know what that is, right? You should not be thinking about your next meeting, because if you're pressed for time, you should proactively take care of that and spread those meetings out. It is better to reschedule a meeting than to be late for a meeting. Okay. I think we all can probably agree with that. Make sure you got enough time. It's never horrible if you have too much time. You can always fill stuff in. You can always call a client and be like, hey, I actually finished early. You want me to swing by? You can always fill stuff in. Don't fail at the first point, right, of opportunity. Next is your emails. Silence your phone, turn the ringer off, turn the buzzer off, all that kind of different stuff. You don't want to be going through that. And I know sometimes it's super hard when you got 34 emails and you're walking in to a meeting, you're like, man, I got to get to 0 or whatever it is. Do it, figure it out, whatever works for you. Your phone calls. I think I've shared this inside a couple other ones. Turn your phone on silent, okay? Do not look at your phone. One thing that I personally do inside meetings, I do take my phone out of my pocket. It is on and it is upside down. And I do that because anything that's coming out of that phone, whether it be the phone lighting up or anything else like that, vibration inside my pocket, it's a very easy way for me to be able to mute the phone. That's what I figured has worked for me. But you need to be able to block out phone calls and any type of disruption. The phone is upside down simply for the light side, right? I don't want the light to light up, client and me look at the phone, and now all of a sudden you guys are in another world of like, what was I saying? You don't want that to happen. Okay. You don't want to be thinking about what you're doing when you get done. You don't want to be thinking about how long the meeting is going to last, with the exception of respect to your client. Because if you schedule a 15-minute meeting, I've seen this happen, where an SDR team schedules a 15-minute meeting and they have a 15-minute block and you're expecting 45 minutes. That's disrespectful to your customer. So I can tell you it happens all the time inside the meetings that I'm in, that they're aware of the time and they say, hey, I know we're approaching time. Would you like to continue, or would you like to take this up at a second opportunity, right? Or a second meeting? It's being respectful to the time they have. The last thing that you want, I've been in this situation, is where I have a client and they go like this. They look at their watch, and that's instantly where they disconnect with me, right? And they're thinking about where they need to be, and they're not in the situation with me. All of this goes back into headspace. And these are all things that you can control, right? How do you not think about your next meeting, your emails, the phone calls, what you're doing when you get done, or how long the meeting will last, is all on how you deal with that personally. I told you how I flip my phone upside down. I take it out of my pocket and I sit it on the desk. That's what I have done to be able to ultimately control phone calls, because I can quickly mute it, to be able to take my head out of the emails that are coming in. And when we talk about next meeting, what you're doing when you get done, all that stuff, that's proactive management of your calendar. Really, really big part of this, guys, is you have to understand your own personal headspace, because that will destroy something much faster than anything else. Anything you want to add to this side, David?
Do not disturb.
Yeah.
You guys got plenty of settings on your phone. Set them up.
I don't use that. I know there's settings for like personal, do not disturb, work, night. I don't use that as much as I probably should. It's a great point.
Yeah, and you can do custom. They're called, at least with iPhones, they're called focuses. You can do a custom to make sure that certain calls get through if you're really worried about it. But doing that is the best way to really drown it out. So like Chad said, you're not even having them reach to your phone to silence it. Sometimes that phone vibrating will disrupt your prospect's thinking and the conversation, and you're there to focus on them.
You're so right. Look at that. I took something away from this. I'm hosting the meeting. I took something away from it. So yeah, no, focus is, I do know it's there. I just haven't taken the time to set it up. So shame on me. All right. Great point. All right. So what I want to talk about is, this is going to read more to the outside sales reps. But I want to talk about what should happen when you guys pull in the parking lot. So we talked about headspace on where you're at, right? So the first thing is, do you see proactive building maintenance? And I say that because you can learn a lot from the outside of the building, right? Is the grass cut? Are the windows clean? What's the parking look like? Are there potholes all over it? Or is it a beautiful brand new paved or seal coated parking lot? You can learn a lot about what's going on the outside of the building. Because after all, the asset that we service, roofing, is on the outside of the building. And the even more scarier part is out of sight, out of mind. So if they're not mowing the grass, cleaning the windows, right, striping it, what do we think the roof looks like? Chances are they're not taking care of that. Now, that's not something to stereotype, but it is something to be aware of, which we'll talk about when we get in the building, right? How does this play in? So the second thing I want to talk about is when you walk in the building. So you pull up, we can already start seeing things of what's going on. Sign in the front window, We already went through that, right? So when you walk inside the building, there should be some type of instant impression that you get. I've walked in some buildings where you literally walk in and I can tell you this is a manufacturer building because it's nothing but manufacturing. I've walked into other ones. I think it was Joe Gibbs Racing inside North Carolina. It's beautiful, right? Like that's the appeal that they have. This big, beautiful, how inviting was this? Right? This is going to be able to tell you who comes there. A lot of times the more important people that come to the building, right, the nicer it's going to be. So it allows you to be able to understand, is it inviting? Is it not inviting? Is it clean? Is it dirty? Do they have anything on the walls, right? This is a huge part. I've seen many things where they have the culture on the wall. I'm thinking about a building that I go to that has how many days they've went without a lost time accident. Different things like that can tell you what they value, right? Lost time accident goes right into safety. And safety goes right into roofing to what we do. So you can tie that stuff together and really start pain hacking, right? Of what could happen. What's the worst thing that's going to happen, which is one of the questions, right? If this wasn't solved right the first time. So you can learn a lot about the building. You can also learn a lot about the walls, offices, awards, stories, that kind of different stuff. The entrance is going to tell you a story, okay? It's going to tell you the story of what they do. It's going to tell you the story of how they take care of their buildings, which is going to lead you in ultimately to their office, right? So when you walk into, I don't know why it's not switching. Let's take a sec. When you walk into their office, nothing else matters but the client's problem or goal. Nothing else matters. And this is the point, right? When you're walking into the front office, you can talk to the secretary, you can see what's going on, you can look around, you can be inside that discovery inquisitive side. But when you walk into your client's office, nothing should matter but the client's problem or goal. We always talk about there's 4 ways to be able to sell, right? Number 1 is problem. Number 2 is goal. Those are the 2 easy ones that you have. If they don't have a problem or a goal, there's education. Okay, that's number 3. Education is educating them on the asset that they have. Chances are they're not going to be a roofing expert, which is why you're in that office or sitting down. So it gives you an opportunity to be able to explain and talk about that asset, right? And educate them, whether it be best practices, preventative maintenance, so on and so on. The 4th one is fear. You don't ever want to go down fear, right? Fear is creating some type of belief that things are much worse than what they actually are. And you don't build relationships. You don't become a trusted advisor when there's fear in. So when you walk into their office, I'm going to ask you the same questions. What's on their wall? That'll tell you what they like, right? Is there anything on the walls? It'll allow you to be able to understand what type of person you're dealing with, right? If there's fishing stuff or baseball stuff or all kinds of different things like that, that could give you a hint that he's an outside guy, which could lead into the questions of how often do you go on the roof, right? If there's a roof leak, how does it work? It allows you to be able to understand what's going on. And then finally, what's on their desk. That's going to tell you how they manage things. Because if you're afraid of being a proposal and a stack of papers and you walk into a guy that has stacks of papers that's that big, that's one of the biggest things that we need to recognize is how they manage their business. Is the desk absolutely clean, right? It can tell you if they're digital or if they're technology savvy. A lot of those things can be seen just from the visual side of walking into pulling into the parking lot, walking into the building, or even walking into their office. These are all things that we should be looking at and understanding. However, go back to Headspace, guys. If we're wondering about our emails, if we're wondering about the phone calls that are coming in or any of the other stuff that we talked about in Headspace, this stuff is going to be far less, I'll say, common or impactful to how you guys relate to the customer and kind of understand what's going around you. David, anything you want to add into this, sir? All right, cool. All right. So the one thing that I will encourage everybody here is to be able to find different perspectives. The same situation can be seen from 3, 4 plus different sides, and every person who saw the same exact action is going to have a different story because they've seen it from a different perspective. They've had different variables that led up to it, right? One person, I'll butcher the example, right? But one person led to it this way, one person led to it that way. And what I'm going to tell you guys is you need to figure out a different perspective. You need to be able to take in and be open to different perspectives. And what I'm going to share with you guys is 3 separate books that have had a massive, massive impact to my evolution of a leader, a manager, right? And even a sales rep. The first one is 4-Hour Workweek. So 4-Hour Workweek is not about working 4 hours, but it's about ultimately using your time as efficient as possible and making sure that you're focusing on the best possible things. One of the biggest takeaways that I got from this, and this has been years inside the making, is virtual assistants. Individuals who basically freelance that can take care of a lot of the administrative sides, and they ultimately, yes, they can work for pennies. I'm not telling you the good ones actually work for pennies, but at the end of the day, they can accomplish what you need to accomplish for you and get you the information you need so you can be more impactful. So once you get to a point where all 40 hours of your time is being used, then what you have to do is start making sure that your time is being used on the most important things, and that's priority. So the next one, and actually I'm going to share all 3 because the next one inside there is getting things done. So getting things done is ultimately about prioritization, priority. Can't say the word. It's about priority. How do you pick the biggest, most important thing, right? How do you take a list of 35 things inside your head and what do you do with them? Well, right, I'm not going to ruin the book for you, but you write them down and you start figuring out which one has the most impact on today, this week, next week, this month, my life, whatever it might be. And that's really what that book focuses on, is how do you prioritize things and how do you make sure that, well, if this never happened, what's the impact to me? And you figure out what's most important. No one can answer that question except for you, because you guys know what you need to get done to be as successful as you want to be, because my goals inside life are different than yours. So being able to have that decision-making strategy, right, will allow you guys to be able to look at situations and understand how and where you use your time. The last one is never split the difference. This is a former FBI international hostage negotiator. And ultimately, he talks about negotiating life and death and some of the things that he had to do during these life and death situations that sometimes he failed and people died, and they died because of how he dealt with the situation. And then he takes that into business, right, and starts using some of the strategies and techniques that he learned as an international, hostage negotiator, life and death negotiation, and how it can be used in the game of business. This is absolutely beautiful because it teaches you a boatload of negotiation tactics that some of us, I didn't even recognize I do sometimes, not even knowing, right? Mirroring is saying the same thing back to be able to amplify where it is, right? So David said, I've been trying to get this fixed for 4 weeks. And I go, 4 weeks? Or you've been trying to get this fixed for 4 weeks? And he's like, yeah, that's mirroring. So there's all kinds of different things that you can do to be able to control emotions and ultimately become a professional negotiator, right? To make sure that both sides get what they want. David and I talk a lot about that buyer-seller disconnect, right? Buyer wants to sell their problems. Seller obviously wants to sell their product, and you get that disconnect of he wants to buy something, he wants to sell something, right? But you're in 2 different areas of how you're getting to that end resolution. So I encourage you guys, if you guys have different books, throw them in here. These are the biggest ones for me, but throw them inside the chat. I'll share them out loud with you guys. Just because if you had something that was like, man, this was massively impactful, throw them in there, throw it inside the chat. Let's help everybody out. Make sure that we get all that there. The other thing that I'll tell you is that I was going to say this. I was going to say I can't read. That's not true. I can read. However, I don't comprehend as nearly as well as I do as listening, right? My skill is listening. When I sit down inside a meeting, especially an important meeting, there's nothing in my hands. There's no phone in my hands. I'm there and I'm just zoned in. That's my personal way of learning. I'm visual and audible. So I use audiobooks. All of this stuff is available And if you guys haven't tried Audible or some type of Audible book, I'm going to recommend that you do, especially outside sales, because you guys spend a lot of time in your trucks, cars, whatever it might be, traveling. And that is one of the biggest things that I found where there was wasted time. When I say wasted time, I love music, right? I love listening to all of that stuff. But when it comes down to I only have 24 hours inside a day, how can I fit in a 10-hour book? That was the difference that started within my career, that started making a big difference. I had a half hour each way to work. That's 1 hour a day. That's 5 hours a week. I was able to finish a book like this literally in 2 weeks. So those are the little changes that I've made within my career, right? To be able to fit in continued education, different perspectives, different things like that. And yeah, and hopefully you guys can, take something like that. But I'm going to tell you, you need a different perspective to be able to understand different ways of looking at the same situation. And you don't have to take it, right? But you do got to be open to learning it and seeing, can it affect, can it improve, can it change, right? Definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So all right, I don't have any questions yet. Use the chat, guys. Throw some books in there. I'm hoping that you guys are reading, or at least using that time. If it's not books, if it's podcasts, there's all kinds of different ways, right, to learn right now. So throw it in there if there's something unique that works for you guys, or something that you listen to that makes a big impact. Throw it in there. Again, we all showed up here, right, to be able to make ourselves better. And with that, right, comes with our peers. All right, so I'm going to talk through ultimately 3 steps, right, to have, personal, I'm trying to think of the right word that I want to use, right, peace of mind. How about that? Step 1, know your numbers. Now, if you guys are a part of either one of the other programs that we offer, part of the sales side, which is Rainmaker or War Room, if you guys are a part of that, we go a little bit deeper, but I'm going to stay on the high level, right? So 3 numbers that matter. First one is lead conversion ratio, right? So when you get an opportunity, how often does that opportunity, that lead, actually turn into a quote, right? Or turn into a meeting, I should say. Because when you first get a lead, what we have to do is we have to qualify, right? Discover and disqualify. So the first number that truly matters is your lead conversion ratio, right? So that's leads developed by meetings completed. Highest level, that's the easiest way to look at it, which means in the simplest way, they showed up, right? Anybody can get a lead, but does the lead actually show up to the meeting, to the Zoom meeting, to the place they were supposed to be, or they say, hey, I'm out of the office? Happens all too often to me. Number 2 is the meeting conversion ratio, which means after you meet with the customer, they pass checkbox 2, right? Problems big enough to act, right? And they need outside or new resources. So the meeting conversion ratio, which is meetings completed divided by proposals delivered, right? So how many meetings did you run to how many proposals that you delivered, which means they check the boxes, right? Kind of already went through that. And then number 3 is your quote conversion ratio. Now, that is the one that everyone typically follows, right? What's your closing ratio? And they say, oh, that's your quote to convert, or that's your quote to sell. The one thing I'll tell you is that this number, changing this number, typically has some of the smallest impacts on your full book of business and the revenue that you generate. And we're going to show that in a second on how we get there. But these are the 3 primary numbers. Now, like I said, if you're a part of Rainmaker, it's much deeper than this, right? We go much deeper to where you guys can actually have more shifts within your book of business and have bigger impact to it. So when you talk about this, it's simple. Proposals delivered by proposals sold. This is one of the most common one that's tracked. But I'll also tell you, it's the most confusing or confused one, that it's like, man, I need to sell more. That means I need to, convert more of my quotes into sales, which is true. But the problem actually starts at the top of the funnel. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So what's it mean, quote conversion ratio? It means they sign a line that is dotted, right? It's that simple. So those are the 3 numbers that we need to look at. So let me make this super, I won't say super easy, but I'm going to make this somewhat easy, right? If you have 100 leads and 80 meetings run, it means you have an 80% lead conversion ratio, right? If you run 80 meetings and 30 quotes go out, it means 37% of your meetings convert. And if you do 30 quotes and you sell 10, it means 33% of your jobs convert. That's what I'm talking about. Now, the key to this, when we take this number, it's a 10% lead to sale conversion, right? So you had 100 leads come in and you had 10 sales that actually converted. Now, what I want to talk about is what we call the magic trick. And David, I'm going to give you the opportunity. Do you want to walk through this, sir?
I don't know if my voice will stay for it, but
You covered me last time, so this is your choice.
if you could take it, I can add commentary.
Oh, there we go. I can butcher it for David, so then he gets all high anxiety and stressed. All right, cool. So here's what we got, guys. So what we're looking at right now is 100 leads in the funnel. What I'm going to tell you guys is we're not going to change that number. What we're going to do is we're going to change what we do with those next actions that come from there. So look up top. We got 100 leads. Can you see my mouse, David? Yeah.
Yep.
All right, cool. So we got 100 leads right there, right? Then we got 70% of those meetings, right? So, I'm sorry, 70% of those meetings run, which means 70. Pretty simple, right? Out of those 100, right? 30% of those turn into quotes. And then ultimately, out of that same number, 25 turn into sales. Okay. So that means five. Average sale is $7,000. It's the number that we threw inside there. So when we look out of every 100 leads, we run 70 meetings, deliver 21 quotes that result inside 5 sales, right? 36,000 bucks based upon, obviously there's some change in the percentage inside there, but brings us to this. What I want to talk about is making small changes within our book and within our process, right? So we have our original one right here, right? Still start with the same 100 leads, but what we do is oh man, I totally messed this up. Sorry. But what we do, there we go. It's because I'm messing with the mouse. I'm not touching anymore. You guys can just follow along in my head. So what we do is, I think I was one up. There we go. What we do is we take those same 100 leads, but we hyper focus on different parts of the funnel. So instead of a 70% meeting conversion ratio, right? Lead to meeting, now we actually have 80%. And 80% gives us 10 more meetings. 10 more meetings that we have, same numbers, we just hyper focus on, okay, how do we get more of those to convert, right? And that could be through conversations, that can be through process, right? We're taking that whole 4D sales process, all that stuff. The next thing I'm going to tell you is we're going to take that 30% close ratio and we're going to just make a small adjustment to it and say, hey, 30%, how can we get just 10% more of the meetings that we run to be able to turn into quotes? Which can actually happen from a handful of different things that are somewhat simple when we hyper focus on them. It could be why they're being disqualified. That's the most easy thing to look at, right? Why are they disqualified? It could be something that maybe we're not delivering, or the leads that are coming in are from the wrong part or wrong, new construction, something like that. But what we talk about is a small increase in that takes us from 21 meetings at a 30% close ratio to 32 meetings at a 40% close ratio. And then finally, we had a 25% close ratio that we talked about. We're going to take that up 10 points. So instead of 5 sales, when you start making small tweaks to each part of the funnel, we go from 36,000 inside sales to $89,000 in sales. And it's not about doubling that close ratio, right? It's not about taking those 21 and saying, hey, I want a 50% close ratio instead of a 25. We made small adjustments throughout that entire funnel. And that is what it's about. That's how you ultimately make massive impact to your sales book of business, right? Your unique book of business. It's not about closing more jobs. It's about being more efficient within the opportunities that you have. So I know there's another one here, David. What do you want to add to this, sir?
Yeah, and guys, don't worry about the numbers per se, right? I know some of you guys, you crank out as many quotes as meetings that you run. Other people don't. So don't worry about the existing conversion. Just use it as an example. But the point is that the way that we want to focus on this is we talk about them as individualized strategic plans for you guys. So that individualized plan for every single person in your company and on your team, it all starts with this. And those of you guys that are in our program know that this is the bedrock, right? This is the foundation that we build everything off of. And your guys' ability to be able to start to see where these increases can happen and then leverage the tools that we're giving you here every week. That's the path forward on this. But it doesn't matter if you're at that $400,000 mark. we've got reps that were there last year, and this year they're moving up to that 1.1 million mark. But then you can move beyond that, and there's really no cap to this. So, Chad will move on to the next one here, but this is all about your individualized plan and what you feel like you should be able to do. And if you're stagnating, even if you're a top performer, if you're doing the same amount of sales every year and you're the best rep at your company, it's not enough. You could be doing more. You could be earning more. And you could be exceeding that potential, which obviously exceeds your ability to earn. So that's what we want to focus on here with you guys. And that's where we want to push the limits of what's possible here for each one of you in your role. Because obviously there's more than enough in it for you.
100%. And 100 leads both go together. There you go. So this is a second example of it, right? And the coolest part, I think, about what we do in Rainmaker is that each one of these, much like you said, it's an individual strategy, right? So this is, and if you guys are a part of it, you guys know this is your numbers, right? So if I was to take this same exact thing and change it just by 5%, right? So instead of an 80% conversion ratio, 85. And if you're not big into percentages and ratios, it's not crazy, right? So we're talking about running 100 leads. And all I'm saying is you get 80 meetings. I'm going to say, hey, how can we get 5 more? 1 more a week, right? And I know these numbers are big to be able to look at, especially in the individual side. But these small tweaks, simply 5% throughout your entire funnel, can result inside hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, those small tweaks, yes, they take change, right? Yeah, we have to change how we're going about it. But the more that we can understand why we're losing deals is the more that we can prepare ourselves and protect ourselves from losing those deals in the future, right? And if you were part of, ultimately, I think it was the second one, we went through those 5 fatalities, right? Why are deals dying? And the more you're able to identify, right? If it is price, right? Our price is too high, or they went with a guy, or they went with the contractor that they've been using, or, hey, the time's not right. We're going to do with it next quarter or next year. Those are all things that we can protect up front, and protecting those up front will allow you guys to be able to increase your ratio. So all of it kind of ties together. So when we talk about these numbers, this is why I say these numbers are so important to be able to understand them. Because it's not just about running as many meetings as you can. It's not about getting as many leads as you can. It's about using that information as efficient as possible, because going right back into it, we only have 40 hours within a week, right? So we don't know how to prioritize the amount of opportunities that we have, and we don't know how to disqualify opportunities that don't fit the funnel. You guys are going to get to a point to where your quotes are 80, 90%, and that's fabulous. But guess what? You don't sell anything. And that's where that fallout happens. We have to have qualification and disqualification through each one of the parts of the funnel. So I already said it, guys, discover and disqualify. That is truly the key to having a healthy book of business, is not letting people pass the gates of your time, right? Time, energy, and effort is what's there. So if you guys can make sure that the only people that actually get quotes or proposals from you are the ones that check the boxes, right? They have a problem big enough that they're going to spend money to fix that problem, right? Their problem is their perception. It's not the roof deficiencies. It's what's happening inside that building. That's the problem. You also need to go through checkbox 2. Do they need new or outside help? If they've been doing it themselves, why don't you just do it yourself? If you're using another vendor, why don't you just use that vendor? It's okay to ask those questions, because that is what's going to open up the gap on why they're looking for other individuals, or why they're looking for something that their current vendor is not providing. That is one of the best things that comes from this question. And then finally, do we have the best solution? That's where you're positioning yourself as an expert inside solving this, because nobody wants to do business with the person that's like, yeah, it looks pretty simple. I think our guys can take care of it. Or do you want to go with the guy that says, yep, nope, we actually had 3 or 4 of these this week after the rain came through. We've taken care of all of them, and we have 0 recalls. You position yourself as an expert inside solving that issue, right? Not just through social proof, but through the ability to be able to relate and be an expert. And that's what the third checkbox is all about. All right. So we talk about those numbers, right? 3 numbers that matter. We'll go through a little bit. David, we should set something up specifically for the workspace and how we kind of run through that. So I know we're getting down on time, so I'm not going to spend time there. So I'm going to say it. Time is your most valuable asset. It's something that you guys will never, ever get more of. You can't, right? You can get more money, you can maybe get more energy, right? But time is something that you can't. And I've talked a little bit about it, but time blocking is the first thing I'm going to tell you. If you guys have a calendar that you run off of, I hope that you have a single calendar that you run off of, because you guys need to be able to block time for the most important things that you need to do. Right. I will, there's something that's called golden hours, right? Golden hours are ultimately the time that your customer is in the office. It's the time that your customer is going to answer the phone. It's the time that your customer is going to talk to you, prospect, customer, candidate, whatever you want to call it. Right. Don't be wasting your time putting together proposals when your customer is literally there answering the phone, and then try to make phone calls at 4 o'clock in the afternoon since he already left. That's bad time management. You guys can block your time. You guys can block out time to be able to make your cold calls, do your inspections. And David and I have already worked on some perfect sales weeks. I want to say we have 3 right now. We have inside sales perfect sales week. We have outside sales perfect sales week. And the third one that we created is outside sales perfect sales week, but it's for the sales rep that does their own inspections. Right. And there's a huge variable inside our industry with that, right? Is that a salesman that just goes out and just hands over opportunities for someone else to inspect them is a lot different than the sales rep who has to go back, do the inspection, create the proposal. There's a lot of variables in that. So I can tell you the entryway into this is block your time. Do not let people schedule on top of what I would call your most important time or your golden hours. Eat the frog is the only thing I can tell you. If you hate doing it, do it in the morning. That is what, because the quote goes, as Mark Twain, eat the frog in the morning because there's nothing worse that you'll do the rest of the day. That's what I can tell you guys. If you hate making cold calls, figure out the time that your client shows up and block time. Calendly is a free application that you guys can use to be able to time block. It'll block it out in your schedule. You just got to make sure that they use your Calendly link. That's what I personally use, and it's a huge, huge part of that. Second one is delegation. I know if you're an independent sales rep, this could be hard. You think, hey, I don't have anyone to delegate to. I'm going to tell you that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because give a man a fish, you can feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you can feed him for life. There are people who can help you. Now, if it's not your office manager, or it's not anybody internally, we did talk a little bit about, going the wrong way, virtual assistants. This is a real screenshot that I have from the virtual assistants that I use. Companies called Time, etc. That's who I found that I personally like a lot. And every one of these right here, I don't pay them until they do a task, right? Think of it as time and material, right? Except there's no materials, time. They clock into the job, they clock out to what it is. Sometimes it takes them 10 minutes to do something. Sometimes it takes them an hour. I can also assign the time that they're allowed to be able to do it. So something as simple as making FAQs, Washington's tax search, right? Company entry in CRM. I needed a bunch of companies added into the CRM, and I knew that my time was more valuable doing something else than it was paying this individual $20 an hour, right, to be able to put it in, knowing that it's going to take her 45 minutes to put it in. So would I pay $17 to be able to get an extra hour worth of calling my clients and following up with, $10, $15, $20,000 worth of work? Again, only something that you guys can make that choice on if it's worth it. But virtual assistants are a huge, huge piece. The only thing I'll tell you, overseas, I have never, ever, ever had success with. The comprehension of what you're trying to say and the reports that you get back have not really met my expectation. I'm sure there are great individuals over there. My recommendation to you guys is Time, etc. That's what I've used for several years. They've been extremely consistent. And if someone falls out, so the virtual assistant's not available, they replace it with somebody. And again, I think they do a great job on that side. The next thing I'll talk about is a task manager. So task manager CRM. If you guys have a CRM that fits what you guys do, that's absolutely beautiful. I'll tell you, a lot of the stuff that I do is not necessarily CRM specific, right? There's different things that I need to do. And one of the first things it talks about inside getting things done is nothing can be in your head. Okay, that's the first thing. Your head needs to be blank. You need to be able to be present in the situation. And that's what I've really found. I'll share the different ones that are down here. I use Todoist personally, but this is what allows me to be able to take my head and literally just blast it out. If there's anything inside my head, it goes in Todoist. And then I have a folder where I can actually move stuff around and I can set dates and priorities and all that kind of different stuff. Again, real screenshot from what I have. every Friday, I think it's Friday I think it's 9 o'clock right now, I make adjustments to the No Rep Left Behind slide deck. That's every Friday. I don't have to think about it. My task manager tells me to do it, and I come in and I make the adjustments for the next slide that we have each week, right? Video ads, what to expect landing page, record scorecards for 9 Centerpoint users, for Sam, all kinds of different stuff. Whatever I have to do, right, goes into this task manager. Now, you don't have to use Todoist. Apple has reminders, right? There's tasks within your iPhone that's in there for free. Microsoft has a Microsoft Task. There's hundreds, right, of different task managers. The only thing I can tell you, best practices is you don't have anything in your head. Get it out, write it down. I don't care if it's on paper. The only part I don't personally like about paper is it's very hard to organize without having to rewrite the task thing 100 different times, right? Or put it on certain days or times or anything else like that. So you can write it down on a piece of paper. I found Todoist be the best situation I've had. Get it out of my head, prioritize it, sign it to a day, and work forward with it. Last thing, I don't think this is last, but habits, right? Habits take time, right? So this is a couple of the habits that I have that I want to share with you guys. Once a week, I clear out unwanted emails. So I unsubscribe to them. Typically it's Sunday. Okay. The last thing that you need, your inbox is ultimately your haven of communication, probably, right, with your customers. Don't let somebody else take that time away from you, especially during the work week. Last thing you want to do is wake up Monday morning and have 42 emails from Kohl's and everything else that's flying through there. Get rid of it. Okay. Unsubscribe to those. That will help you not have 100 emails by 10 a.m. Todoist runs my day. It tells me when and what I will do. It ties into my Gmail calendar. It ties into everything else that I have. It lets me up my priorities and goals. If I was to show you it, it actually tells me to check my CRM and complete my CRM activities. That is a task that I have every workday. So I need to go into my CRM. I need to complete those tasks. That's something I have to do. I use the 5-second rule. Fabulous book. If you can't answer it within 5 seconds, if you can answer it within 5 seconds, do it. Respond to the email. If you can't, I push it over to Todoist and it becomes a project. Now, good communication comes with that. I have to tell David, hey, David, I'll get this, I'll have this back to you by the end of the day, right? When I respond to him. But what I do is I push it over to Todoist because I want that inbox zero. I want to be able to know inbox is what's going on. These are new requests, right? Think of it as like a ticket order system. And I either A, answer it right there, or B, I push it over to a project. I never go to bed with an email. And I say that, and I know some people probably think I'm crazy. I answer it or I move it to Todoist. So I use that same process. I don't care if it's 10 o'clock at night. This is me, guys. It doesn't have to be you, right? But if I have an email, I'm either A, responding to it, B, snoozing it. So I do snooze it. Or C, I send it to Todoist. And Todoist, it'll then get prioritized for when and what I'm doing each day. I am an inbox zero kind of guy. And then each night I choose the non-scheduled priorities for the next day. So I go into all the stuff that I put over and I assign it to the next day. I typically always look at my next day ahead and be able to say, okay, does this actually need to happen today? I do have tasks that continue to be able to move. There could be a task yesterday that was very important. I look at it today and I was like, nah, next week, right? And I throw it the next Tuesday or Wednesday. Those are mostly the things that David asked for. But I go through and I choose all my non-scheduled priorities for the next day. I know this was a lot to be able to jump through, but this is all about holding yourself accountable, right? You are in charge of you. This is a battle with you, right? If you're inside Rainmaker, we say it all the time, right? This is a you versus you. Your averages, your numbers, your conversion ratios, right? This isn't putting you up against the best sales rep when you started 2 weeks ago. These are yours, right? So step 3 inside here is perfect your process. Do what works. I'm explaining this to you guys because this is what I've developed over my 18 plus years of process. And I hope that you guys have your starting piece to what your process is. But I can tell you there are a few things, right, that I had to have. Number one is I have to know the numbers that matter. I have to know the numbers, right, that move that needle. Those conversion ratios, those are the biggest things to me. The second thing is I have to be able to control my time. I have to know, right, what's my best priority, how to prioritize and when to do it. And then step 3, I got to perfect it, right? There's tons of stuff I try every single day. There's tons of stuff I do that fails. but I can tell you the stuff that stays is the stuff that be able to helps me get done ultimately probably in 20 hours. What someone that does not have the process I have takes over 40. And that is where true, I won't say excellence, right? But that's where true productivity, that's the word I'm looking for. That's where true productivity comes from, is working smart, not working hard. So all of the stuff that we have outlined, I actually did it. I have 3 minutes left. All of the stuff that we have outlined, guys, is the buyer's action plan. We went through those 3 check boxes. Do they need to act? Do they need new or outside help, right? And do they have the best solution? You guys don't have to think, right? You don't have to work hard to be able to figure out what those questions are. We already have it, right? When people sit down with me, there's typically a problem or a goal that they're trying to solve, which isn't for you guys. It's all there. It's all done. David and I have already perfected that throughout, our relationship together, and even deeper than that, David's past, of how do you ultimately take a company that's $3 million? They need to be at $100 million inside, 24 months. That was David's issue. How do we get everybody on the same page to be able to have the same success asking the same question? The answer to that is consistency. If you don't have consistency in the questions that you guys are asking, if you don't have consistency in the way that you're qualifying or disqualifying prospects, you cannot forecast the future, right? The past will tell us what the averages are. We can change the future by understanding the past. And that's exactly what we do by understanding these numbers. It's exactly what we do walking into Rainmaker or War Room, right? The 2 other things that we do. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but you guys know what the perfect buyer's journey are, right? We're session number 6 at this point right now. So you guys have that. You guys know what this is. The 4D process is what's going to take you there, but you got to have the headspace. You got to guys have your own process. You got to protect your time. All of that stuff, right, is going to get you there. So step 1, know your numbers. Step 2, time, protect your time. Don't waste it. Step 3 is perfect the process. Do what works. That's a huge, huge part inside getting this together. I know there's been some back and forth on this, but the one thing I want to talk to you guys is No Reps Left Behind is simply just the beginning of what we're doing within sales alignment and what we're doing within Make Sales Work. This is going to give you guys the bones of what it takes to be that top 1% sales rep. Rainmaker ultimately is the easiest way I can explain it. It's an individualized program for reps so they can understand their book of business and understand what it's going to take to be able to hit their goals. It's not a question of if they can hit the goals, but how. What you do, what we focus on, and what your numbers are is what gets you from where you are right now to where you want to be. War Room is a sales leadership mastermind, right? Think about all of the sales leaders coming in, talking about best practices and solving some of the biggest issues in the business. You guys as sales rep, you know what those big issues in the business are. And that's what we're doing, is we're getting together and we're solving those as a collaborative group, so we can come back and create a better environment for all the sales reps that, are out inside the streets, making it happen like you guys. David, anything you want to add to this, sir?
I'll just echo that. You got, guys, everybody, we don't know the limits of this and where this can go yet. We still have any rep to cap out. So for you leaders here, you know that your team is leaving money on the table. You know that you guys are missing deals that you guys should be getting. That's what this stuff is for. And for you reps out there, we're trying to give you all the tools so that you guys can take control over your potential as well and get those deals that you should be closing, but just aren't for whatever reason. Some are uncontrollable. A lot of them are controllable, guys. And those are the ones that we want to focus on. And that is the difference between exceptional sales performance and ordinary sales performance. So put this stuff into action, guys. All of it compounds to massive results for you guys.
No problem. David, I will send you down a bottle of Alpha Brain. That way you can feel better, get back on the horse. And yeah, guys, have an awesome Thanksgiving, everybody. Truly, guys. Thank you for joining. And if there's anything you need from David or I, you know how to get in touch with us. Thanks, guys.
See you guys.